say facial features, we look the same. We really don't. I can show you my sister-in-laws. I can show you my mother-in-law. I look nothing like
No,
them.
no,
We have
I didn't
similar
say.
color skin, but hold on, Yosef, but we don't look alike. We have different features. So when you say, oh, skin tone, it's hypocritical because this skin tone is all over Asia as well. My same skin tone. But you would say, oh, well, that person looks Asian. So we know they're not the same. So why are you trying to claim us to be African based on our skin tone?
So let me ask you, Dulcinea,
Or
if they
not.
put you in that same space as these same Asians that look like you, would you say you will fit in? You will be what, as in one with them, or
Yeah,
you'll
she
be
could. She could.
no,
Absolutely. My best friend
no.
is Indian. My best friend, I grew up with her, and our moms were like best friends as well. And her mom loved my mom. I can't even get into it, but yes. And they used to call her the Indian Miss Parker because she was fine. So yeah, Indians, you can get along with Indians. I think Judge Joe Brown was talking about it one time where he saw some Indians out and he thought he mistook them for us. And but their first thing was like, hey, we're not American. No, we're from India. So they will say, hey, we're different. But Africans say we're different all the time if they're really from Africa.
Hmm.
Look,
I mean, you're
they
pretty
got tribal.
different
Listen,
though.
in Africa, on the continent they call Africa now, tribes don't even identify as family until one conquer the other. So how the hell we gonna all identify with somebody that don't all identify as one thing? That's retarded.
And some people are past.
Fact.
And so let me stop.
And in peace, Neon B, I wanted to say you look so nice tonight. When we haven't seen you in so long.
I know. She looks so cute.
Ain't no lie, I'll be looking like a snack. Hey.
Let me hold my wild Indian friend back. You can't just be taking all of them, okay?
Mom. Yeah, so
Hey,
yeah,
I'm
I
all
just
y'all. I'm all
Mhm.
y'all.
All right. Yeah, so I just have a question. Because it sounds like we are like at each other. What type of relationship should we have with the people from the land that's called Africa? What kind of relationship should we have?
We should have a free and open relationship, allowing the people from Africa to remain African and the people from America to remain American. We can't force our identity of our tribal heritage on nobody from Africa, and they sure as hell can't force theirs on us. And this is called mutual respect. We was at war with a different group of people that look like the people in Africa, and they look like the people over here, and they ain't none of us. That's why they was invading and conquering all of us. But we not the same people. We do have ties to people from royal families in Africa, marrying people with royal families from the Americas over thousands of years of intermingling, but our root stock has always been here, and that's just us. We was here.
That's it. Yeah, I agree
Hey
with that.
Rob,
That
let me
I
ask you this.
agree.
At this time that you're talking about that we was marrying this nobility from over there, and they was marrying over here. Was all of these people
Yeah. Well, I agree that we was all over the world. I actually believe, I can't prove it, but I actually believe that, at one time the planet was a tropical planet and we were melanated. The whole world was melanated at one time. That was one experience, one time, one moment in time. That's what I believe. I can't prove it, but from the stuff that I've been studying, that's just like a theory of mine that this was a black planet. All over the world, we were melanated at one time, but then change happened and a new era came, a shift came, like it's
But here
coming
go
now.
the irony to what you're saying is you can
Mhm.
find verification and proof
That's
of
absolute truth.
melanated people who claim their ancestors have always been on every continent.
Absolute truth.
The Australians is the only people that said that they migrated from the Polynesian islands to the island of Hawaii. And the genetic record trace that they supposed to have done verified the tribal claim that they migrated across a series of islands that's now underwater that took them to the continent of Australia from the Melanesian people. Right?
Okay.
So it's the same, the people in the bushes in South America. They say they always been there. They not quite dark as us, and they got straight hair, but they ain't Europeans, right? So when you get to where you got the people in Belize and you start questioning their elders, they're gonna say, really, our people was here long before 1492. The same with the Afro Mexicans. They ain't no immigrants. They organic to the land. And then they amalgamated with people that came by ship and by Bering Strait from Siberia and as the dynasties of China, and from Japan by boat from the imperial dynasties of Japan. And that's all in the dynastic record of the Japanese and the Chinese, and how they brought the kings of the land, the many brides on their ships. It's all recorded, and it's not hard to find. It's just that the understanding to push the Western narrative is to usurp all organic people, no matter where they at, from the place they organic to. We organic to the Americas, though we may have phenotypical traits of Africa. We might share the common heavy melanin, and we might share the common kinky hair. But all of us don't got kinky hair. Some of us is darker than me, and their hair is straight, bone straight, silky, with no perm and no straightener. But then you got some that's lighter than me, hair nappy as sheep wool. But we still here. We never went nowhere. The grand delusion is to convince us that we wasn't always here. It don't work on me because I know we was always here.
One more question. So, what's the resolve? I mean, to improve our relationship and to get the truth out. What's the resolve? Is the resolve for us to keep going back and forth with each other, the Pan Africans against the Aboriginals, natives? I'm just, just trying to make a point. I mean, what's the resolve for us to keep going back? What's the resolve? What's the source of the division and the lies, the
War.
miseducation, misinformation? What's the
War was
source?
the source.
Repeat that again. I didn't hear you.
War was the source. All of this is a war that was being fought. After the physical conflict, everybody started resorting to sorcery magic in order to try to one up each other. And now we not in a physical war. We in a bloody spiritual war that's to be fought by conjurers, sorcerers, magicians, shamans, priests. It's no longer left up to the generals, but to the priests to resolve the spiritual inequalities. By resolving the spiritual inequalities, you start to balance the people wherever they at. First, you got to be satisfied to be who you is and where you from, wherever you from. Because you can't come into another person's reality and tell them where they from if you don't want them telling you where you from. Right? It's called mutual respect. We come in with the respect, and then we don't have to be put in the place for being disrespectful. And the conflict resolves itself. Africans is from the continent of African, even if they don't call themselves African. Right? We don't mind them people They can come visit. They can move over here and marry who they want. We always been that way. But don't try to discredit us from being the people from over here being systematically murdered in the street like dogs, executed by the system as innocent men and women and children, and some of us with handicaps, and tell us how we supposed to behave to the common threat. This is the result of that war going spiritual in order to meet the so-called war in heaven that fell on earth. In order to resolve the matter, you have to resolve both. Because as above, so below. If you can't reconcile the spiritual realm, you'll never reconcile the physical realm. The physical realm reflects the work done in the spirit realm. The spirit work is done by spirit workers. No matter what you call them, witches, oracles, priestesses. It don't matter how many of them you try to burn at the stake. We're going to keep coming until we come with a solution. And the only solution is give everybody their own dignity and end the war. Period. If you don't end the war results in systematic divide and conquer in order for the conflict to remain in place. Take away the strategy of divide and conquer, you undermine the ability to keep people at odds with each other when all they got to do is be themselves. You're going to naturally gravitate to the ones like you, tribing up. Pursue your best life and draw down the best energy from the spirit realm. Enough of us do it, we manifest reality of a physical realm that's heaven on earth.
Yeah, I got you.
So the more of us that understand the concept, the easier it is to resolve the conflict. If you can find a reason to see another human child and say, let it die, you need to deal with that issue. Because that energy is what's holding you back from reaching ascension caliber energy. Seeing the system as the game of the gods as opposed to the victims and humanity. Once you start seeing it for what it is, it starts explaining itself to you. Now you don't even need nobody to answer no questions because the universe giving you the answers.
I'm aware. All right, I just want to say one more thing for real this time. Do you think part of the problem is because people just don't know who they are? They're not aware. I mean, our memory. Have you ever seen a movie Paycheck? If you understand that movie, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like their memory has been erased. They don't
It
know who
is.
they. That's a big part,
This was the game.
right? So
Yeah,
do
When
you
but you
you
think
guys are
come in
talking
with your
about
memory erased.
you guys are
do
talking
you,
about a game that was played. Basically, this civilization is finished, like you said before. A new game is coming. So therefore, this game here has expired. And therefore,
How
you
you
have
just
to now
gonna cut off
subscribe to the new
the
game.
how you just gonna
You
cut
dig
off
what I'm
the
saying?
old subject? But Yosef, how you just gonna cut off the Elder Rod Hayes when he was answering the sister question? She didn't say Yosef. She was talking to the to him, bro. Damn, you just cut him off and your mic chopped.
My
But sis,
apologies.
go
My
ahead.
apologies. I just wanted to make a point. That's all. I just.
Go ahead,
All right,
Naomi.
brother.
My bad.
Brother. You don't need to go on. You don't need to go on. Let him come in, man. I apologize,
Cut
please,
your mic
brother.
off
Come
if
on
I
in.
don't need
Come
to
on
go
in.
on. But mute up.
do you think part of the healing process is time for people to start with themselves? Maybe people need to start with themselves and trying to, figure to know their self, come to know who they are on their own themselves. Do you think that is
Constructive,
process?
constructive selfishness. You gotta be selfish enough to get you right before you end up healthy enough to take on the burden of helping others. If you don't do the self work, you won't qualify to do the work in the world because you still got self work to do. So it's very critical to begin with the self. right? Because you got to always ask yourself, if you got to make a decision for a group of people and you thinking over the decision, you thinking about how the least and how the greatest of these people are going to be affected by your decision. And then you go through the spectrum and ask, well, how do you feel at each level? That's not a common trait of the current leaders. There's no understanding of the nature of the people you oppressing and giving them no relief. So the knowledge itself is critical to get into the relief. You have to be selfish enough to do the inner work, to make yourself strong enough to fight the outer fight. It's a fair exchange. The more self-work you do, the stronger you is to do the work for others.
Can I say something to you, Neon B? I think it is really important what you're saying, and I think that's something that we really do focus on in this channel. But the problem is we've all been taught different ways of knowing ourselves. So, for instance, if I bring up Sister Freedom and she has to go at some Bible people because they want to believe the Bible in the literal sense, and she's bringing it back to say, hey, this is allegory, so you can know yourself, you can see yourself in the story and fit it. Well, someone that's already believing that there's talking snakes and donkeys and all this other stuff, you can't bring it back to themselves. So I think the problem has been that we quote know thyself, but everyone has a different meaning of what that means to know yourself. And I think the biggest thing for us to answer this question is to know your family. You have to dig into that genealogy. You have to know who you are, where you come from, and then go in order. We talk about we want to take over the government before we take over our community. We talk about we want to take over the federal government before we take over the state. So there's steps to this, and I think trading with Africa is definitely a step, but it's not one of the first steps.
What are we trading with Africa? What do we need from them?
Why are you guys
I would
fighting?
say we
You
can get
fighting
minerals
yourself.
for
It
them, but
starts to me.
mainly we need to be the ones that are in control of our resources, as well as they need to be the ones that are in control of their resources. And then we can discuss what there is to trade, how we can maneuver trade, how we can do imports and exports,
We
different
don't
things
have
like that.
resources,
So
Rosalia.
one of
And
They
the
have
What does America
cobalt,
export? What does
they have
America give to the world? I want to ask you,
food,
Rosalia. What food? What
gas,
kind of food that Africa doesn't have?
corn.
What kind of food that Africa doesn't have?
it's Mike
What
Chop.
food are you bringing us that we don't have? Please
Tell him
enlighten me.
fix it, Mike. Tell him fix
We
it,
have
Mike.
the corn, tomatoes, rice.
We have all that.
different-
We have all that. So tell me, what are you bringing?
You have
Bring
all
it
that in
on.
the UK? Who's we? You have that in the UK?
Okay, you got
Because
it.
I'm talking about Africans. Wait, are we confused of where you are?
look,
Because I can tell you,
listen, they have
for sure that we could cut out a middleman when it just comes to like what I know of Zimbabwe. We can cut out a middleman in between where they're the other people, the Chinese, the undone people, as Sister Frida called them, all this other stuff, and making billions of dollars in Zimbabwe a year off of American resources. And where we can stop having middlemen, but I don't think that's where we start. I don't think we start there. There's no way we can start there if we're not at a point where we need to be here first.
yeah. So
But we're
you
gonna do
always
it for
start
self.
with
We're gonna do it for self. We're not gonna need you. If that's the case, if we're doing it for
Tomorrow,
self.
okay, hold your point, please. Go ahead, Rod.
so that's the reason why we in the current process of restoring who we are on the land, exercising birthright, right? So when he telling us we from Africa and we exercising the birthright that we have to this land, it's a situation where we have to be adamantly against that philosophy that we are from Africa, because we not, first of all, other than that, we in the process actively of reclaiming the land. And you can't take over at the top. You have to work from the grassroots level. So when the sisters say you got to take our communities back first, right? But you got to have when you bringing down an old system and you want to try to keep the people as calm as possible, you usher in the new system. Just as one fall, you begin to work in the construct of the new system. Then at some point, the old system comes to an end. Okay, that's not longer working for us. We've exhausted this chapter of misery. We've seen through the waters. Now we come and raise our head to the sky. Now we can see who's who on the planet Earth. We don't have a problem with them people, and we ain't got to solve nothing with them. We got a problem with our colonizers, and they got a problem with their colonizers. We tend to agree with them about the problem they have with their colonizers, and they tend to agree with us about our problem with the colonizers, but they just don't think we're supposed to look like we look when they see us. Because when they see us, they assume that we should be over there on the other side of the ocean working on that liberation plan instead of the one that we got for our clans over here. Right. So not I tell the brother we not from Africa to emphasize that we was always here, but the fact that we was all melanated around the world, it's an undisputed fact. People don't even realize the Neanderthals was some melanated Negroes. But now when you talk Neanderthal, everybody's talking about pale-skinned Europeans. They wasn't here yet when the Neanderthal was here. Wasn't no pale-faced Europeans when the Neanderthal was around. That's not even a debatable topic. Do you know that the pale-face only been around, they started about 8,400 years ago. So when you go back to Neanderthal, you're talking about 100,000 years ago or more. So you can't say they the Neanderthal, they wasn't even here.
They
So
all
would that
came
be considered the caveman though? Would that be considered the
came from
caveman?
albinos.
The caveman is considered to be Australopithecus, the stage before they became Homo erectus.
Right, before they became upright.
Right. And the Neanderthal is the early stages of Homo erectus when he's starting to walk upright and use tools, according to their Darwinian theory. But they don't have answers for what's called the missing links, the sudden jump in the evolutionary ladder, right? But that's answered in the Anunnaki tablets when they told you they was tampering with the human genome in the laboratories, right? But we don't want to believe that society was ever that sophisticated, and we looking at the pyramids talking about how was they built.
That's our friend.
Right. But the whole thing is when you look at them, there's a reminder that culture had reached a very high level in order for the mathematics used in the pyramidal construct to have those large megalithic structures to be so tightly fit together in perfection. That means somebody was striving for perfection on Earth at some point.
Can I say something, Rod? Hold on, y'all said, but I want to say I want to say something really quick because people act like I have misinformation or something, and I don't like that. So, y'all said, I want you to know, okay, why I brought up rice, and then you can look up other places or other resources. Africa imports over 40% of its rice. It's a $1.1 billion a year industry, because 40% of the rice is imported. So that's what I'm saying as far as when it comes to where we cultivate rice here in the Americas. What I'm saying is getting to a point where we can be the ones making that $1.1 billion because we're the ones that ultimately were cultivating the rice. Rice is indigenous to here. But But we can't start with that step. We can't start just being like, oh, I know I'm indigenous to here, I'm going to take over the rice. No, it starts by us focusing on here first and then moving to Nyambi's point where we're actually getting back to what we were doing with people that are indigenous to Africa before. We know it's not called Africa, you know, but with different tribes that were in Africa being like, now let's establish trade, let's establish resources amongst each other and cut out all these middlemen that are making all this money off of our resources.
You see, that's why I think you're wrong, because again, due to trade contracts is why you have this deal that you're speaking about. Other than that, we can take care of ourselves. We can
Hey,
grow
you
our rice.
staticky.
But
You're
right.
you're real staticky, and you say we could take care of ourselves, but as of today, 40% of the rice is imported, and it's a $1.1 billion a year industry. So you can say, oh well, we could do it ourselves. Well, but right now Asians are the ones that are making money off of y'all. It's not y'all doing it yourself. You're getting other people richer.
You're missing the point though, Sonia.
And a lot of the
point is
staples that are in
we're
the food
tied by
actually
trade, by
come from America.
contracts,
Fix your mic. Fix your mic,
again,
brother.
when they give us these
Yeah, you
loans
may have to
and these
drop
monies,
Yasef
they
really
have ties
truthfully,
behind it,
truthfully,
basically,
Yasef,
which
because you're
forbids
really
us to
underwater.
do
What
certain
people are
things.
saying to you, because we can't understand you, Yasef, because you're underwater right now. If you could just try to fix your mic, because you're really underwater. We're not even lying to you.
Sorry, all right, hold on. I'm saying to you that
No,
We can't
okay,
we are
hear
drop
bound.
down.
you.
Samora, you have to drop down
Mute
and
your
come back up.
mic.
It's staticky. It's hard to hear
Yeah,
you.
just drop down and come right
Drop
back up.
down
Can y'all
and then
put the
come
link in
back
the
up,
chat for him? And then
please.
just come right
Drop
back up,
down,
and I think it'll
Samora.
fix it.
Drop down,
Okay.
and then you'll hit the link and you can come back up. But drop down now, okay?
I want to know. I was about to ask him, like, yo, is rice indigenous to Africa?
Because he'll go on and on. And
Absolutely not. He knows it's not. And they say that supposedly they say there's a lot of land that could cultivate rice that's being unused currently. So they say that could fix their problem. But I mean, we can say that all day, every day. But when you look at the imports of what's coming in, it could be beneficial as far as for us to take back what Dots is saying, our natural resources, and us be the ones that are actually trading it for our benefit.
And like Rod said, and that goes back to what Chief Pontiac was saying earlier. Like, we got tricked out of what we knew. Like, if we known that this rice was from here and it grew here wildly, and they came here and they cultivated it, you know, he took it back there, and the corn and the tomato and the potato saved their life by itself.
We fed the world.
Man, and if we had known that back then, like Rod has said, man, we would not be in this predicament we are at now. And because it's been for so long, and because there was so many different aspects coming at us and doing this to us, it's like, well, goddamn, where do we start? You know what I mean? So shouts out to Chief Pontiac, man, for letting us know where we should start at, and also not where we should start at, but get us halfway in the game. The rest is up to you from where you're at with your genealogy, because that's the only thing else that can save you from there or can take you farther. So shouts out to you, Chief Pontiac. You know
Appreciate
what I mean?
you, brother. Appreciate you.
Yeah, I'm one of them 7'4", man. I'm shy, you know what I mean? Early 80. You know what I'm talking about?
For sure.
15, 19, you know what I mean? 7'4" to the world blow.
Yeah,
Just let you know. Word. Word.
GD.
Hey, Dots, why you looking like a dinner?
I don't know if I want to say that.
Why you looking like a dinner tonight? You look like you got the house set up. You waiting for me to come to play the piano. You know, or you know, while Rod sit on the couch, and drop the history, I'm playing the piano while you cooking. You know, and you know, we got Nyambi just sitting there with her pad like she's the interviewer. You know, I see it. Let me stop, y'all. Let me stop, man.
Yeah.
Y'all smile, man. Smiling is always better than being sad, man. We done been duped for so long. And
but you know what? I think also
this much of hope.
I think also. Oh, sorry, LTK. What were you saying?
Oh, my bad. I was saying this much of hope.
Okay.
Right here. This much of hope.
Yeah, no, I was saying that I think also that much of what you were talking about, Rod, right? It requires, I think, it requires some things that I don't think a lot of people have in 2024, and that's discipline and heart.
That's fact.
And most people ain't got that.
Correct.
I know sometimes I might sound like I
Can we
might
say
sound a little mean.
Yeah. Does environment have to deal with that? Go ahead, Rod. And elaborate with her question. Does environment have to deal with Sister Dots just say? Can that play an impact on the way that people feel?
Of course, you're a product of your environment. What goes on in your environment, it molds the person that you become because of what you have to deal with. That may not be the same if you would have grew up in a different environment. They've been running experiments with the chiefs when they catch them as babies. They take them from their mama and they adopt them to a foreign family that's not from the same blood stock to see if they can raise them different. The nature versus nurture experiment is what it's called. When they was taking these kids and swapping them out in the hospitals, they wanted to see if a Czechoslovakian woman could raise an Irish baby, so they switched them at birth. Right? They wanted to see if the Mohawk sister and the Shoshone sister can raise the baby like it's his own, so they switched them in the hospital. But they kept a record, and a couple times they got caught. So we know what they was doing because they got caught. So the environment is definitely a factor on how you perceive the world. Because what you see first is what you learn to use as your defense offense strategy as you move through life.
So it starts with your environment or community.
Yeah. Well, it don't start with them, it starts in your house.
Well, yeah.
It's the same way. It's the same way.
I was already advanced. But thank you for taking me back, bro. Yes. Where do we need to start from? My fault for going too far ahead. Yes, we need to start in the house. Go ahead, Chief.
When the chief is born, the chief don't just automatically become the chief. He got to first go through all of the lessons with his immediate family, right? Then the families determine that he's now ready to go in the community and to meet the different other up and coming chiefs